The metal cuffs snapped shut, cold and sharp against my wrist for the third time in a month. Victoria Langston's voice echoed through the humid evening air of Willow Creek. Her phone held high as she live-streamed my humiliation to over 2,000 viewers. "Got him," she crowed, her tone vibrating with a mix of triumph and nerves. "This guy thinks he's above the rules, but we've caught him red-handed." Neighbors clustered on their lawns, some filming, others whispering, their phones glowing like fireflies in the fading light of July 15th, 2026. I stood there, calm but seething, watching Victoria bask in her moment of glory. She had no idea who she was dealing with. Sometimes, the people who think they hold all the cards are the ones closest to losing everything. It all started 3 days earlier, on a muggy Monday morning in Willow Creek, a tidy suburban enclave just outside Raleigh, North Carolina. My wife, Ellen, and I were finally tackling a long-overdue chore, clearing out the storage unit we'd been renting since our kids left for college. 30 years of marriage means 30 years of hoarding stuff you swear you'll use someday: old lamps, photo albums, a box of VHS tapes nobody makes players for anymore. We'd parked the moving truck in what I thought was a perfectly legal spot, the emergency access lane behind our condo complex. I'd done my homework, checked the county maps, called the fire department to confirm we weren't blocking anything critical. The dispatcher even chuckled and said, "Go for it, just keep it quick." But Victoria Langston, president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, had other ideas about my parking choice, and I was about to learn how desperation can twist someone into knots. At 9:32 a.m., Victoria stormed out of the HOA office, her usual polished look fraying at the edges, hair slightly unkempt, eyes shadowed like she hadn't slept in days. She clutched a laminated document like it was a court order signed by the governor himself. "Mr. Thompson," she called, her voice dripping with that fake authority people develop when they've never had real power. "You're parked in a private HOA emergency lane. This is trespassing." I set down a box of Ellen's old cookbooks and walked over, keeping my tone even. "Ma'am," I checked with the fire department. "This lane's public access, not HOA property. I've got the county map right here." I pulled out my phone, showing her the official emergency access layer. Her smile tightened, eyes narrowing as she unfolded her precious laminated blurry, photocopied survey from 1998. "This proves the lane belongs to the HOA," she said, tapping it with a manicured nail. "Your map's outdated." What happened next should have been my first warning. Instead of debating property lines, Victoria dialed 911 emergency dispatch, not the non-emergency line for what was clearly a civil dispute. "I need police at Willow Creek condos," she said, her voice suddenly quivering like she was reporting a break-in. "A resident's using private property for commercial activity and refusing to comply." Refusing? I'd just shown her a map and offered to call the fire department to confirm. But her performance was Oscar-worthy, turning a box-hauling retiree into a menacing scofflaw. Officer Daniel Carter arrived 10 minutes later, looking like he'd rather be fishing than dealing with HOA nonsense. He listened to Victoria's spiel, complete with her waving survey, then reviewed my county map and paced the lane, muttering about hydrant clearances. "Ma'am," he finally said, "county records show this as public access. No violation here." Victoria's smile vanished, her hands trembling as she folded her laminate. "I'll be filing a complaint," she snapped, storming back to her office. As I resumed loading boxes, I noticed a manila envelope sticking out of my jacket. Ellen's medical accommodation request, marked filed, pending review in red ink. Victoria had stared at it for a good 10 seconds earlier. At the time, I thought she was just nosy. Now, I realized she was already plotting her next move. That night, over takeout pizza at our kitchen table, I couldn't stop replaying the encounter. "She's desperate to pin something on me," I told Ellen, who was massaging her swollen knuckles, a side effect of her worsening arthritis. "She called the cops over a legal parking spot." Ellen shook her head. "Some people have too much time and not enough real problems." But I wasn't so sure. Victoria's intensity felt personal, like she needed to win at something, anything. I caught her later that evening, pacing outside the HOA office, phone to her ear. "It's me," she whispered. "Medical equipment delivery tomorrow. Make it urgent." The call ended before I could hear more, but my gut told me Ellen's accommodation request had just become a pawn in a much bigger game. Tuesday morning started at 5:15 a.m., earlier than any sane person should be awake. Ellen's arthritis demanded early pool therapy sessions. Doctor's orders for warm water at dawn, when the chemicals were mildest and her joints were stiffest. We'd been doing this for weeks, ever since we filed the accommodation request with Victoria's office. But when we reached the pool gate, a new aluminum sign glared at us. Pool hours, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. No exceptions. It wasn't a cheap printout. This was bolted on, machine cut, dated yesterday. Ellen's shoulders slumped, her therapy bag heavy in her hand. "James, what's this?" she asked, her voice small. We both knew. Victoria had targeted our request, still under review for 3 weeks. A security guard approached, flashlight bouncing across the deck. "Sorry, folks," he said, showing us a text from Victoria, sent at 11:47 p.m. "No pool access for Thompsons before 7 a.m. Call police if they resist." I showed him Ellen's prescription and our filed request. He winced, caught between a rock and a hard place. Before I could argue further, Officer Carter rolled up, looking even less thrilled than the day before. "Got a trespassing call," he said, sipping coffee. I handed him our documentation while the guard showed Victoria's text. Carter read everything, radioed for a fair housing check, and sighed. "Federal law says they can't block your therapy while your request's pending. You're clear to use the pool." Ellen completed her session, moving easier than she had in weeks. But as we left, I saw Victoria at her office window, phone in hand, tracking our every move. That night, Ellen stared out our window, her voice quiet. "Maybe we should move, James. This is too much." I squeezed her hand, feeling the heat in her joints. "You're not the problem," I said. But privately, I wondered if we were fighting a losing battle against someone with endless energy for conflict. Wednesday afternoon brought the trap I should have seen coming. Ellen's new TENS unit prescribed for her worst pain episodes arrived at the package room with a 5 p.m. pickup deadline. Miss it, and it'd go back to the supplier until Monday, leaving Ellen in agony all weekend. The package room was simple. Tap your fob, grab your stuff. But when I got there at 4:43 p.m., the main entrance was blocked with caution tape and a sign. "Water leak. Maintenance in progress. Use side entrance." No water, no workers, just pristine floors and Victoria's SUV parked with a clear view of both entrances. The side entrance was open, but lined with "No trespassing," signs, professional, legal-looking placards positioned for the security camera, now angled to capture every step. Ellen texted, "Pain's bad. Need that device." It was 4:48 p.m. I circled the building, looking for another way in. Nothing. The setup was surgical. Get the device, or break the rules. At 4:54 p.m., I made the choice Victoria knew I'd make. I walked past the signs, feeling the camera's lens like a sniper's scope. The fob reader beeped reluctantly, granting access. I grabbed the TENS unit in under 90 seconds, but those seconds gave Victoria her prize. Undeniable footage of me trespassing. As I left, she was on her phone, voice electric with victory. That evening, Ellen's pain eased with the device, but my phone rang at 9:42 p.m. Victoria's voice was cold, prosecutor sharp. "Mr. Thompson, I have footage of you trespassing on HOA property. Multiple violations, clear as day. We need to talk about your disregard for our rules." She hung up before I could respond. Outside, her car sat in the HOA lot, office lights blazing, silhouettes moving inside. This wasn't about a package room, it was leverage for something bigger. Thursday evening, the circus arrived. News vans, police lights, and a crowd of neighbors turned our quiet street into a spectacle. Victoria stood on the HOA steps, live streaming to nearly 2,000 viewers. "We've caught a criminal abusing our community," she declared, her tablet showing the footage of my trespass. Officer Carter approached, cuffs ready. "Mr. James Thompson, you're under arrest for trespassing." The crowd buzzed, phones recording, as Victoria's viewer count soared. I faced her camera, voice steady. "I'm Judge James Thompson. Contact the duty judge for immediate review." The chat exploded. "Judge?" Plot twist, as Carter froze, recognition dawning. He'd dealt with me before, small-town cop knowing the local bench. I continued, loud enough for the stream. "There's a pattern of retaliation here, violating federal accommodation laws." Carter radioed his supervisor, and the 2-minute wait felt like eternity. Victoria's smile faltered as her audience turned, comments flooding. She's done. This is wild. The duty judge, Margaret Evans, reviewed the timeline our accommodation request, Victoria's texts, the staged trespass, and issued a temporary restraining order, halting HOA enforcement pending a hearing. The cuffs came off, the crowd hushed, and Victoria's face drained of color. I brought a paper trail, I said to her camera. It brought friends. The comments erupted, justice served. She's toast. But Victoria wasn't done. As the crowd thinned, she stared into her camera, voice low. This isn't over. I know where he lives. Everyone has weaknesses. The chat screamed warning stop, you're live, but she ended the stream, leaving 800 viewers with a recorded threat against a judge. Friday morning, the fallout began. Court-appointed receiver Laura Bennett arrived, briefcase in hand, to take over HOA operations. Victoria rallied 3 board members, clutching coffee cups and shouting about illegal seizures. Laura, unfazed, presented Judge Evans's order, temporary management due to federal violations and retaliation. Within hours, she'd secured the safe, computers, and records, uncovering a pattern of targeting disabled residents, wheelchair users, elderly folks, single parents, anyone who dared request accommodations. Victoria retreated to her car, making frantic calls, while a lawyer, Richard Coleman, arrived, his suit screaming money. By afternoon, Victoria's social media was ablaze with posts about corrupt judges and photos of our house. Ellen at the store, spinning a tale of victimized homeowners. But Laura's audit was digging deeper, and what she found turned the tide. Saturday revealed the real rot. $52,000 siphoned from HOA funds, funneled into Victoria's legal fees and fake insurance claims. She'd used community money to bankroll her harassment, forcing residents to pay for their own persecution. Meanwhile, her lawyer filed a judicial misconduct complaint against me, alleging I'd abused my position to dodge HOA rules. It was a bold move, but the evidence, emails, texts, financial records was stacking against her. That night, anonymous flyers appeared in mailboxes, listing our address and Ellen's routine, urging concerned citizens to watch us. Neighbors called to warn us, but some bought Victoria's story, turning our community into a battleground of fear and loyalty. Sunday morning, my security cameras caught a sedan at 2:23 a.m., snapping photos of our house. The license plate matched one seen near the federal building, suggesting Victoria was now stalking government offices. I sent the footage to Officer Carter and Laura, building a case that was no longer just about HOA rules. By Monday, IT volunteer Mark Evans discovered Victoria's hired tech was wiping server records, mails, violation logs, everything. But Mark's backup drives, installed after a crash last year, saved it all. At the community meeting, residents like Clara Bennett shared stories. Her grandson's wheelchair ramp cited for aesthetic violations, his drawings darkened with shame. Victoria stormed in with Coleman, threatening lawsuits, but Mark projected damning emails, deny Thompson pool access, framed trespass footage. The room went silent, the truth heavier than any argument. Tuesday's audit sealed Victoria's fate, $30,000 paid to Coleman's firm from HOA funds, labeled as consulting. Laura called it embezzlement disguised as legal fees. Coleman's misconduct complaint against me backfired when the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit joined the investigation, probing Victoria's accounts. By Wednesday, she was on Channel 5, claiming I'd weaponized judicial power to silence her. But an anonymous tip, likely hers, alleging I owned hidden properties, unraveled when my public disclosures proved otherwise. Her TV stunt only drew more scrutiny to her finances. Thursday's hearing in Raleigh's municipal courthouse was a spectacle. Over 400 packed the gallery, from Willow Creek and beyond, drawn by a case now national news. Judge Evans presided, her voice cutting through Victoria's theatrics. ADA expert Dr. Sarah Mitchell testified to 49 violations targeting disabled residents. Clara's grandson, Ethan, stole hearts, explaining his blackened ramp drawings. The mean lady says my wheelchair's ugly. Financial records showed Victoria's theft, while Mark's emails proved premeditated harassment. Victoria's defense protecting property values crumbled when she admitted ignoring ADA training. Judge Evans ruled in 14 minutes. The HOA charter was revoked, assets transferred to a resident-led group, and Victoria's actions referred for criminal investigation. The gallery cheered, Clara hugged Ethan, and Victoria sat frozen, her legal team already billing for the next fight. 6 months later, on January 20th, 2027, Willow Creek was unrecognizable. Property values climbed 28%, driven by accessibility upgrades and a thriving community garden where Victoria's fake barriers once stood. Kids wove her old caution tape into colorful bunting, a symbol of healing. Victoria, under a plea deal, worked at the county library, helping seniors with tech, her control-freak days behind her. I took up HOA reform consulting, helping communities nationwide avoid her mistakes. At our September barbecue, Victoria showed up, dish in hand, nervous but sincere. "I thought control was strength," she said, watching Ethan tend his garden. "I was wrong." I nodded. "Orders for people, not the other way around." She joined a crowd, welcomed cautiously, a step toward redemption. This fight started with a parking spot and ended with a community reborn. But what would you do if a medical device for someone you love sat behind a trap like Victoria's? Would you cross that line, knowing cameras were rolling? Would you risk everything for relief, or let pain win to stay legal? And what about Victoria? Did she deserve her fall, or was she a victim of her own desperation? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button if this story gripped you, and subscribe for more tales where power meets justice head-on.